As a tense hush fell over the Marston County Courthouse that morning, the sun's early rays streamed through the towering windows, reflecting off the polished floors and casting a solemn glow over the packed gallery. Reporters, armed with notepads and cameras, lined the corridors, all eager to capture every moment of what was being billed as a high-stakes case. At the center of it all stood Elise Morgan, a poised, dignified black woman in her 40s, clad in a crisp navy blue suit that perfectly complemented her high cheekbones and steady, dark eyes. She exuded an air of quiet authority. Accompanied only by her seasoned attorney, Gregory Holtz, a discreet assistant Deanna, Elise entered the courtroom with a measured confidence that contrasted sharply with the smug demeanors of the two police officers seated with the prosecution. Officers Mark Ridley and Dave Thompson from the Westbridge Police Department exchanged derisive glances. Ridley, a broad-shouldered man in his early 50s, sported a self-satisfied grin that marred the dignity of his uniform. Beside him, Thompson, younger and brimming with insolence, leaned forward as if already relishing the opportunity to see Elise falter. Their unspoken confidence, rooted in a history of heavy-handed tactics and bias, suggested that they were convinced this trial would be a mere formality. As Judge Pamela Whitfield, robed in black and carrying the gravitas of the law, called the court to order, the atmosphere became almost electric with anticipation. The official charge against Elise, as circulated in local media, was obstruction of a police investigation. The prosecution claimed that, during a prior operation led by Ridley and Thompson, Elise had interfered in a manner that warranted a criminal indictment. Yet, those present could sense that the true story lay far deeper than the public narrative. The courtroom fell silent as Assistant District Attorney Colleen Marshall rose to deliver the prosecution's opening statement. With a tone that dripped with condescension, she painted Elise as a reckless, brazen figure whose supposed interference had derailed an important police operation. Ridley and Thompson nodded in quiet unison, their eyes glinting with anticipation at what they believed would be an easy victory. Elise, however, maintained a serene composure. Though her posture was relaxed and her expression unreadable, a subtle tension tightened her jaw, a silent testament to the gravity of the injustice unfolding before her. To those who looked closely, it was evident that this trial was about more than just one woman's fate. It was a battleground for truth, accountability, and the long-overdue confrontation with systemic prejudice. When Gregory Holtz took the floor, his presence brought a calm assurance that resonated through the courtroom. Known throughout Westbridge for his relentless pursuit of justice, he addressed the jury directly. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "you've been told a story spun by biased account. You've heard claims that Miss Morgan obstructed a police operation, but what you have not heard are the facts that reveal how officers Ridley and Thompson exploited their authority for personal gain. Today, we will show you that their methods were not only unlawful, but driven by a prejudice that has no place in our justice system." At that moment, the officers shifted uncomfortably. Ridley's self-assured smirk faltered ever so slightly, and Thompson's eyes narrowed with barely concealed annoyance. The tension in the room was palpable as Holtz announced that the defense would present surveillance footage from the day of Elise's arrest. The overhead screens dimmed, and grainy black and white footage filled the room. The video showed a quiet residential neighborhood in Westbridge during a late afternoon. Elise, dressed in casual clothes and radiating concern, was seen approaching a modest house following a community event. The footage captured a brief yet charged confrontation. Ridley and Thompson, approaching with exaggerated arm gestures, appeared dismissive of Elise's calm inquiries. At one point, the video paused on an image of Elise being forcibly cuffed against the side of a police cruiser. Rather than depicting an aggressive struggle on her part, the recording revealed a woman merely seeking clarity, only to be met with undue force. Holtz's measured voice broke through the silence. "This footage does not show a violent offender. It shows a citizen asking questions, a concerned neighbor, and then being met with disproportionate aggression. We will present eyewitnesses who saw exactly what transpired that day. As the lights brightened, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Among the witnesses was Carmen Williams, a retired schoolteacher and longtime neighborhood watch volunteer. Taking the stand, Carmen recounted in vivid detail how Elise had approached the officers politely, simply inquiring about an unusually heavy police presence near a residence where an elderly woman had lodged complaints about harassment. Carmen's testimony was sincere, tinged with the sadness of witnessing yet another case of overreach. "I saw no signs of aggression from Elise," she testified. "It was the officers who escalated the situation with needless hostility." During cross-examination, the prosecution attempted to discredit Carmen, hinting at her age and possible visual impairment. But Carmen's clear, unwavering voice countered every insinuation. With a quiet determination, she stated, "I needed glasses for reading, not to misinterpret a call for help." Her testimony lent further weight to the defense's argument that the true issue was not Elise's conduct, but the prejudiced behavior of the officers. Between witnesses, whispers of speculation spread through the corridors. Journalists huddled in corners, and the tension among jurors deepened. Meanwhile, outside the courtroom, Tiana kept a vigilant eye on the proceedings, knowing that Elise held a secret that would soon transform the course of the trial. In a discreet conversation with Gregory, Elise confirmed, "There will come a moment when the truth must be revealed, not just for me, but for every citizen wronged by biased policing." Gregory nodded, the gravity of their strategy clear. "We have built our case on hard evidence and unwavering eyewitness accounts. When we unveil your true position as the newly appointed head of Homeland Security, these officers will have no escape. This is about accountability, about ending a cycle of injustice." As the trial resumed after a brief recess, Judge Whitfield allowed further testimony. Gregory introduced additional evidence and expert witnesses, each reinforcing the narrative that the incident was not a case of obstruction, but an act of racial profiling and abuse of power. Every piece of evidence chipped away at the credibility of Ridley and Thompson's version of events, revealing a pattern of misconduct that extended far beyond one isolated encounter. When the prosecution's narrative finally began to crumble under the weight of incontrovertible facts, a hush fell over the courtroom. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Gregory paused dramatically before addressing the jury one final time. "Imagine," he said, "if every officer in uniform was held accountable for their actions, regardless of rank. Today, you have the power to make that vision a reality." At that pivotal moment, with all eyes on her, Elise leaned forward and, with a calm yet resolute tone, declared, "I am not just a defendant in this courtroom. I am the head of Homeland Security." The revelation sent shockwaves through the gallery. Gasps rippled across the room. The once condescending expressions on the officers' faces transformed into stunned disbelief. The prosecutorial team faltered, and even Judge Whitfield's composed demeanor gave way to an unmistakable pause. In the ensuing silence, it became clear that the trial was no longer merely about an alleged act of obstruction. It had become a public reckoning with entrenched prejudice and abuse of authority. The courtroom buzzed with the promise of accountability, and the citizens of Westbridge felt a renewed hope that justice might finally prevail. As the day drew to a close, the future of the Westbridge Police Department hung in the balance. The evidence and testimony, coupled with Elise's powerful revelation, set in motion a series of investigations that would eventually lead to sweeping reforms. For Elise Morgan, the trial was not just a personal vindication, it was a bold stand against a system that had long tolerated racial bias and unchecked power. The case would be remembered not only for its dramatic twists, but also as a turning point in the struggle for civil rights. a reminder that even those who seem vulnerable can, in truth, wield the power to reshape an entire system.